or being responsible. He could easily ignore a hot babe living in the apartment with them. No problem. No problem at all. Army's phone pinged, and he peered at the screen. Great. An email from my mom warning me Lovey's on her way. Thanks, Mom. He shook his head as he tapped a reply. She wants me to make sure Lovey's okay in the big city. Jesus. Yeah, Lovey seemed like she was going to be okay. They arrived at the dealership, and while Army signed the paperwork, Marc wandered around looking at the vehicles, trying to ignore the attention from the staff, male and female. The receptionist approached him for an autograph. You're my favorite player. She let out a breathy laugh. I watch all the games. Yeah? He obliged by scrawling his messy signature across the Land Rover pamphlet she held out, adding his jersey number beneath it. You watched that last game against Philly? Of course. You guys played great. He stuck his tongue into one cheek and nodded. Thanks. They'd sucked. They'd lost 3-1, probably their worst game so far. Another game added to their losing streak. Do you speak French? Her eyes widened. Mais oui. He grinned. That is so sexy. She stared at him. Calice. He resisted the urge to sigh and smiled instead. Merci. I love your accent. He wanted to frown. He barely had an accent. He'd been raised by a francophone mother and anglophone father, and although his education had been all in French growing up in Quebec, he spoke both languages fluently. Maybe there was a bit of an accent. Whatever. Hey, I'm Doug, he called to his friend. I'm gonna head out. Meet you at the Sin Bin? Yup, be there soon. The Sin Bin was a restaurant bar owned by one of their teammates, Jared Rupp. They often hung out there with other Aces players. Friday night, no game, afternoon practice, they'd all planned to head there for food and drinks. Army would meet him there, driving in his sweet new ride. Marc had to smile at Army's choice. You could take the boy out of the farm, but you couldn't take the farm out of the boy. Army had grown up on a dairy farm in the heart of Wisconsin, feeding and milking cows. He was a total redneck, wearing a camo baseball cap backward, dressed in faded jeans and boots, and had recently grown a heavy beard. He liked to fish and hunt and spend time in the great outdoors, and living in Chicago had driven him nuts at first. Even now, he still got antsy surrounded by skyscrapers and concrete and glittery lights. Apparently, Lovey Armstrong had grown up on the same dairy farm. You'd never know it to look at her, though. Other than the sprinkle of faint freckles over her nose and cheeks, she looked all city girl, with bright hair parted in the middle and curling over her shoulders, shiny lips, and stylish clothes, including sexy high-heeled boots. Yeah, she was no redneck, or whatever the female term for redneck was. Wasn't there a song about a redneck woman? Whatever. That was clearly not her. Marc headed downtown where Rupper's restaurant was located. The place was super popular, especially since the Aces had won the Stanley Cup 2 years ago. Lots of puck bunnies hoping to run into hockey players. Nothing wrong with that. More important, the food was fantastic and it was a fun place, so it wasn't just people hanging out to meet hockey players, it was actually a well-respected Chicago restaurant. He walked into the Sin Bin and turned left to enter the bar, unwrapping his scarf from around his neck. Voices filled the room along with a tune by Imagine Dragons. Marc's eyes swept the room and spotted teammate and owner of the bar, Jared Rupp, a.k.a. the Ruppinator, or just Rupper, or GQ since he was always all duded up. Rupper stood at a tall table where 4 women sat on stools. They were all gazing raptly at him as he talked, and as Marc approached the table, he caught smiles, a lot of hair flipping, and then laughter. Rupper was such a womanizer. Rupper flashed a smile, then spotted Marc as he neared the table.